All right. Well, I need to trim. Good morning. We are in the book of Exodus. I have a meeting here in about 30 minutes, so we're going to do some reading while we wait. And these are the names of the children of Israel who came to Mitzrayim with Jacob, each one with his household: Reuben, Shimeon, Levi, and Yehuda, Issachar, Zebulun, and Benjamin, Dan and Naphtali, Gad and Asher, and all those who were descendants of Jacob were 70 beings, as Joseph was already in Mitzrayim. And Joseph died, and all his brothers, and all that generation. And the children of Israel were fruitful and increased very much, multiplied and became very strong, and the land was filled with them. Then a new sovereign arose over Mitzrayim who did not know Joseph. And he said to his people, "See, the people of the children of Israel are more and stronger than we. Come, let us act wisely towards them, lest they increase. And it shall be, when fighting befalls us, that they shall join our enemies and fight against us, and shall go up out of the land." So they set slave masters over them to afflict them with their burdens. And they built for Pharaoh supply cities, Pithom and Ramses. But the more they afflicted them, the more they increased and grew, and they were in dread of the children of Israel. And the Mitzrites made the children of Israel serve with harshness, and they made their lives bitter with hard bondage in mortar and in brick, and in all kinds of work in the field. All their work which they made them do was with harshness. Then the sovereign of Mitzrayim spoke to the Hebrew midwives, of whom the name of one was Shiphrah, the name of the other Puah. And he said, "When you deliver the Hebrew women and see them on the birth stools, if it is a son, then you shall put him to death. But if it is a daughter, then she shall live." But the midwives feared Elohim and did not do as the sovereign of Mitzrayim commanded them, and kept the male children alive. So the sovereign of Mitzrayim called for the midwives and said to them, "Why have you done this and kept the male children alive?" And the midwives said to Pharaoh, "Because the Hebrew women are not like the Mitzrite women, for they are lively and give birth before the midwives come to them." And so Elohim was good to the midwives, and the people increased and became very numerous. And it came to be, because the midwives feared Elohim, that he provided households for them. And Pharaoh commanded all his people, saying, "Throw every son who is born into the river, and keep alive every daughter." Chapter 2. And a man of the house of Levi went and married the daughter of Levi. And the woman conceived and bore a son, and she saw that he was a lovely child, and she hid him 3 months. And when she could hide him no longer, she took an ark of wicker for him, and coated it with tar and pitch, and put the child in it, and laid it in the reeds by the edge of the river. And his sister stood at a distance to know what would be done to him. And the daughter of Pharaoh came down to wash herself at the river, and her young women were walking by the riverside. And when she saw the ark among the reeds, she sent her female servant to get it, and opened it, and saw the child, and see the baby wept. So she had compassion on him, and said, "This is one of the Hebrew children." And his sister said to Pharaoh's daughter, "Shall I go and call a nurse for you from the Hebrew women to nurse the child for you?" And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Go." And the young woman went and called the child's mother. And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Take this child away and nurse him for me. Then I shall pay your wages." So the woman took the child and nursed him. And the child grew, and she brought him to Pharaoh's daughter. And she became her son, and she called his name Mosheh, saying, "Because I have drawn him out of the water." And in those days it came to be, when Mosheh was grown, that he went out to his brothers and looked at their burdens. And he saw a Mitzrite striking a Hebrew, one of his brothers. So he turned this way and that way. And when he saw no one, he struck the Mitzrite and hid him in the sand. And he went out the second day and saw 2 Hebrew men fighting. And he said to the one who did the wrong, "Why do you strike your neighbor?" And he said, "Who made you a head and judge over us? Do you intend to kill me as you killed the Mitzrite?" And Mosheh feared and said, "Truly the matter is known." And Pharaoh heard of this matter, and he sought to kill Mosheh. But Mosheh fled from the face of Pharaoh and dwelt in the land of Midian. And he sat down by a well. And the priest of Midian had 7 daughters, and they came and drew water and filled the troughs to water their father's flock. But the shepherds came and drove them away. Then Mosheh stood up and came to their rescue and watered their flock. And they came to Ruel, their father. And he said, "How is it that you have come so soon today?" And they said, "A Mitzrite rescued us from the land of the shepherds, and he also drew enough water for us and watered the flock." And he said to his daughters, "And where is he? Why did you leave the man? Call him and let him eat bread." And Moshe agreed to dwell with the man, and he gave Zipporah his daughter to Moshe. And she bore him a son, and he called his name Gershom, for he said, "I have become a sojourner in a foreign land." And it came to be after these many days that the sovereign of Mitzrayim died, and the children of Israel groaned because of the slavery. And they cried out, and their cry came up to Elohim because of the slavery. And Elohim heard their groaning, and Elohim remembered his covenant with Abraham, with Isaac, and with Jacob. And Elohim looked on the children of Israel, and Elohim knew. Chapter 3. And Moshe was shepherding the flock of Yithro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian, and he led the flock to the back of the wilderness, and came to Horeb, the mountain of Elohim. And the messenger of Yahweh appeared to him in a flame of fire from the midst of a bush. And he looked and saw the bush burning with fire, but the bush was not consumed. And Moshe said, "Let me turn aside now and see this great sight where the bush does not burn." And Yahweh saw that he turned aside to see, and Elohim called to him from the midst of the bush and said, "Moshe, Moshe." And he said, "Here I am." And he said, "Do not come near here. Take your sandals off your feet, for the place on which you are standing is set apart ground." And he said, "I am the Elohim of your father, the Elohim of Abraham, the Elohim of Isaac, the Elohim of Jacob." And Moshe hid his face, for he was afraid to look at Elohim. And Yahweh said, "I have indeed seen the oppression of my people who are in Mitzrayim, and I have heard their cry because they're slave drivers, for I know their sorrows. And I have come down to deliver them from the hand of the Mitzrites, and bring them up from the land to a good and spacious land, to a land flowing with milk and honey, to the place of the Canaanites and the Hittites and the Amorites and the Perizzites and the Hivites and the Jebusites. And now see, the cry of the children of Israel has come to me, and I have also seen the oppression with which the Mitzrites oppress them. And now come, I am sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the children of Israel, out of Mitzrayim." And Moshe said to Elohim, "Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh, and that I should bring the children of Israel out of Mitzrayim?" And he said, "Because I am with you, and this is to you the sign that I have sent you. When you have brought the people of Mitzrayim, you are to serve Elohim on this mountain." And Moshe said to Elohim, "See, when I come to the children of Israel and say to them, 'The Elohim of your fathers has sent me to you,' and they say to me, 'What is his name?' what shall I say to them?" And Elohim said to Moshe, "I am that which I am." And he said, "Thus you shall say to the children of Israel, 'I am has sent me to you.'" And Elohim said further to Moshe, "Thus you are to say to the children of Israel, 'Yahweh Elohim of your fathers, the Elohim of Abraham, the Elohim of Isaac, the Elohim of Jacob, has sent me to you. This is my name forever, and this is my remembrance to all generations." Excuse me. "Go, and you shall gather the elders of Israel together, and say to them, 'Yahweh Elohim of your fathers, the Elohim of Abraham, of Isaac, and of Jacob, appeared to me, saying, I have indeed visited you, and seen what is done to you in Mitzrayim. And I say, I am bringing you up out of the affliction of Mitzrayim to the land of the Canaanite, and the Hittite, and the Amorite, and the Perizzite, and the Hivite, and the Jebusite, to a land flowing with milk and honey. And they shall listen to your voice, and you shall come, you and the elders of Israel, to the sovereign of Mitzrayim, and you shall say to him, Yahweh Elohim of the Hebrews has met with us, and now please let us go 3 days' journey into the wilderness to slaughter to Yahweh our Elohim. But I know that the sovereign of Mitzrayim is not going to let you go, not even by a strong hand. And I shall stretch out my hand and strike Mitzrayim with all my wonders, which I shall do in its midst. And after that he shall let you go. And I shall give this people favor in the eyes of the Mitzrites. And it shall be that when you go, you shall not go empty-handed, but every woman shall ask from her neighbor and from her who sojourns in her house objects of silver and objects of gold and garments, and you shall put them on your sons and your daughters, and shall plunder the Mitzrites. Chapter 4. And Moshe answered and said, And if they do not believe me, nor listen to my voice, and say, Yahweh has not appeared to you? And Yahweh has said to him, what is that in your hand? And he said, a rod. And he said, throw it on the ground. So he threw it on the ground, and it became a serpent, and Moshe fled from it. And Yahweh said to Moshe, reach out your hand and seize it by the tail. So he reached out his hand and took hold of it, and it became a rod in his hand, so that they believe that Yahweh Elohim of their fathers, the Elohim of Abraham, the Elohim of Isaac, and the Elohim of Jacob, has appeared to you. And Yahweh said to him again, now put your hand in your bosom. And he put his hand in his bosom, and when he took it out, and see, his hand was leprous like snow. And he said, put your hand in your bosom again. So he put his hand in his bosom again, and drew it out of his bosom, and see, it was restored like his other flesh. And it shall be, if they do not believe, nor listen to the voice of the first sign, they shall believe the voice of the latter sign. And it shall be, if they do not believe even these two signs, or listen to your voice, that you shall take water from the river and pour it on dry land, and the water which you take from the river shall become blood on the dry land. And Moshe said to Yahweh, O Yahweh, I am not a man of words, neither before nor since. You have spoken to your servant, for I am slow of speech and slow of tongue. And Yahweh said to him, who has made man's mouth? Or who makes dumb, or deaf, or seeing, or blind? Is it not I, Yahweh? And now go, and I shall be with your mouth and teach you what to say. But he said, O Yahweh, please send by the hand of him whom you would send. And the displeasure of Yahweh burned against Moshe, and he said, is not Aaron the Levite your brother? I know that he speaks well, and see, he is also coming out to meet you. And when he sees you, he shall be glad in his heart. And you shall speak to him, and put the words in his mouth. And I am with your mouth, and with his mouth, and I shall teach you what to do. And he shall speak for you to the people. And it shall be that he shall be a mouth for you, and you shall be an Elohim for him. And take this rod in your hand, with which you shall do the signs. Then Moshe went and returned to Yether, his father-in-law, and said to him, please let me go and return to my brothers who are in Mitzrayim, to see whether they are still alive. And Yethro said to Moshe, go in peace. And Yahweh said to Moshe in Midian, go, return to Mitzrayim, for all the men are dead who sought your life. So Moshe took his wife and his sons and set them on a donkey, and he returned to the land of Mitzrayim. And Moshe took the rod of Elohim in his hand. And Yahweh said to Moshe, as you go back to Mitzrayim, see that you do all those wonders before Pharaoh, which I have put in your hand. But I am going to strengthen his heart, so that he does not let the people go. And you shall say to Pharaoh, thus said Yahweh, Israel is my son, my firstborn. So I say to you, let my son go to serve me. But if you refuse to let him go, see, I am killing your son, your firstborn. And it came to be on the way in the lodging place that Yahweh met him, and sought to kill him. And Zipporah took a sharp stone and cut off the foreskin of her son and threw it at his feet and said, you are indeed a bridegroom of blood to me. So he let him go. Then she said, you are a bridegroom of blood because of the circumcision. And Yahweh said to Aaron, go to meet Moshe in the wilderness. And he went and met him on the mountain of Elohim and kissed him. Moshe then told Aaron all the words of Yahweh who sent him and all the signs which he had commanded him. And Moshe went with Aaron and gathered together all the elders of the children of Israel. And Aaron spoke all the words which Yahweh had spoken to Moshe. Then he did the signs before the eyes of the people. And the people believed, and they heard that Yahweh had visited the children of Israel, and that he had looked on their affliction, and they bowed their heads and did obeisance. Chapter 5. And afterwards Moshe and Aaron went in and said to Pharaoh, thus said Yahweh Elohim of Israel, let my people go, so that they celebrate a festival to me in the wilderness. And Pharaoh said, who is Yahweh that I should obey his voice to let Israel go? I do not know Yahweh, nor am I going to let Israel go. And they said, the Elohim of the Hebrews has met with us. Please let us go 3 days' journey into the wilderness and slaughter to Yahweh our Elohim, lest he fall upon us with pestilence or with the sword. But the sovereign of Mitzrayim said to them, Moshe and Aaron, why do you take the people from their work? Get back to your burdens. And Pharaoh said, see, the people of the land are many now, and you make them cease from their burdens. And the same day Pharaoh commanded the slave drivers of the people and their foremen, saying, You are no longer to give the people straw to make bricks as before. Let them go and gather straw for themselves, and lay on them the required amount of bricks which they made before. Do not diminish it, for they are idle. That is why they cry out, saying, Let us go and slaughter to our Elohim. Let more work be laid on the men, so that they labor in it, and not pay attention to words of falsehood. And the slave drivers of the people and their foremen went out and spoke to the people, saying, Thus said Pharaoh, I do not give you straw. Go take straw for yourselves wherever you find it, for your work shall not be diminished. And the people were scattered in all the land of Mitzrayim to gather stubble for straw. And the slave drivers were hurrying them on, saying, Fulfill your actions, your daily matters, as when there was straw. Also the foremen of the children of Israel, whom Pharaoh's slave drivers had set over them, were struck and were asked, Why have you not fulfilled your law in making bricks both yesterday and today as before? And the foreman of the children of Israel came and cried out to Pharaoh, saying, Why do you treat your servants this way? There is no straw given to your servants, and they say to us, Make bricks. And see, your servants are struck by your own people, but your own people are at fault. But he said, You are idle. You are idle. That is why you say, Let us go and slaughter to Yahweh. So now go work. And straw is not given to you, but deliver the amount of bricks. And the foreman of the children of Israel saw that they were in trouble after it was said, You are not diminished in your daily amount of bricks. And when they came out from Pharaoh, they met Mosheh and Aaron, who stood there to meet them. And they said to them, Let Yahweh look on you and judge, because you have made us loathsome in the eyes of Pharaoh and in the eyes of his servants, to give a sword in their hand to kill us. And Mosheh returned to Yahweh and said, Yahweh, why have you done evil to this people? Why did you send me? For ever since I came to Pharaoh to speak in your name, he has done evil to this people, and you have not delivered your people at all. I hope this finds you blessed. Shalom.